It's very hard to build trust, but it's very easy to lose it as well. And specifically for e-commerce and retailers out there, they spend so much money in marketing. They look about optimizing the CPC, the CPM of the marketing campaigns. Then you bring the customer to the website, they go to the payment page, they cannot pay. That's a bit of an issue.
Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Retail Remix Stories powered by Find. This is where you get to be up close and personal with inspiring business leaders who are not only building great businesses, but through their massively transformative purpose, are also shaping the future of commerce in the region and the world. Today, we get to talk about the most exciting opportunity in the region, that's Fintech. A lot of our listeners have been asking us to bring leaders from this space, and I'm very, very happy to introduce our guest today, Remo Giovanni. Thank you very much for joining us, Remo.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Remo is the general manager of checkout.com. And we'll learn more from Remo about his story, his journey, and what is he doing? What are the exciting things that Checkout is doing today? Welcome to the show, Remo.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. I've known you for like 8-9 years now, Remo. Probably we started off at the same time in Dubai.
That's right.
And I've always admired and looked up to you and learned from you. But for our listeners, it'll be good to know who's Remo. So once upon a time, there was a little boy called Remo. Maybe we start from there.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to start. I've actually been in the region for almost nearly 11 years. So came into the region like back in 2014, and I actually started my career, if we do a step back, in e-commerce digital and mainly with retails. By working with Rocket Internet back in the days from Australia to Southeast Asia, and then end up in Australia in South Africa at some point before I came to the UAE. So that's why I'm very excited to be part of this show. I've been always very close to the retail e-commerce ecosystem, and since the last 7 years, obviously working at Checkout. I love the fact that I keep very close eye what's happening on the retail space, but obviously thanks to our expertise in the multi-different line of business, we have good exposure about everything else is coming in this part of the world. I'm originally from Italy. That's where I grew up. I spent 19 years of my life in a small little town in the south of Italy. And then I decided it was time to go somewhere else.
Nice, amazing. And where all did you live? I saw on your LinkedIn that you've actually been in Mumbai and you've been in Australia. So tell us something about those days.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. It was a long time ago when I was in India. So after I graduated at Bocconi in Milano, and in actually business economics, innovation and management. So I think I was very clear already what I wanted to do. And between my bachelor and master of science, I had a bit of a gap, and I said, you know what? Why don't we get a job opportunity? And the Indo-Italian Chamber of Commerce, they offered me an opportunity in Mumbai, and they say, why not? So I spent a few months there, and it was an awesome experience, and that really helped me quite a lot. It was not something related to tech, not much to retail, but one of my first job actually was very interesting, and being outside my country and in an interesting place like India really helped me to grow a lot.
Amazing, that's awesome. Coming to Fintech, right? So I think you've seen it evolve in the last 11 years across, and especially with your role at Checkout, right? So 10 years ago, how was it and how has it evolved? Help us go through the journey.
The region evolved quite a lot. First of all, if you look at 10 years ago, a lot of retailers and e-commerce, they didn't really bother much about helping to improve and optimize the experience in e-commerce because cash was still very dominant payment method. I think that's the number one thing that we should keep in account. While now we see a massive adoption of digital payments in general, of cards, but obviously also we have digital wallets, we have rise of the alternative payment solutions, the payment methods such as buy now, pay later. So from that point of view, it increased quite a bit. The second thing that also we see that e-commerce in general grows substantially. Now you can do pretty much everything online, while like 10 years ago, it was like mainly transactional, very focused on e-commerce. Now from any day-to-day activity, you can definitely do on your mobile phone, on any kind of app available, specifically in the UAE, and obviously you have like in Saudi, the convenience of everything, to have everything from one click from your device is definitely some of the things that we've been seeing changing quite a bit.
And so again, going back to the early days, how was it to kind of adapt? How open were businesses to figuring out whether Checkout really works for them, and what are some of the challenges that you faced?
It's very interesting because in the early days, And checkout started in 2013 in this part of the world. I was a merchant of checkout before, and then I joined in 2018. So I would say not too much early days, but still relatively young. The first challenge is convincing people to accept card payments. I remember when we were speaking with one of the largest food platform in Saudi, the conversation was not about checkout, but was really about why do I really need to enable online payments? Because people pay upon to delivery. Why do I need to have online payment solutions? And then the adoption of local solutions such as MADA accelerated things quite a bit. We also see in the other countries as well, because the region is also very fragmented. So the Middle East region is composed by multiple countries, and when obviously it comes to specifically to fintech, is also very fragmented, and you need to make sure obviously every single country has its own payment solution and local payment method. But going back to your question, it was really the biggest challenge is to convince people to adopt digital payments rather than explaining how checkout will solve them. And then overall, the market was really getting more mature. We were educating people much more in terms of our solution, because we are a global company, UK based. We came in the region earlier than anyone else. So I think that was one of the biggest advantage for us. But at the same time, we have a very strong view on what's happening in the other parts of the world. And we knew that the world was moving in one direction, which was more and more digital. So it was really about being present at the right time to accelerate this fast growth.
Understood. And so while you overcame those challenges, and I've been a merchant of checkout, and I've always been also a fan of checkout, right? In the sense of the UI UX, most businesses are built on happy flows, but checkout really takes care of the negative flows as well, right? So when there is a debit transaction, what happens? When there's a cancellation, how smooth is that process as well, right? So do you think checkout is a tech company in finance, or is it a finance company that's also in tech?
It's an interesting question. We obviously, as a strong fintech, we look at different area of the different businesses, and our business is not very straightforward because it's the intersection of finance, of tech, as you mentioned, but also about regulation. As a regulated company, to keep that in account, and regulation keep changing, and there is more and more regulation in the payment space. And last but not least, obviously, the payments itself. So it's really like the intersection of different line of business that makes our business very unique and very, very complex from that point of view. And our job is also specifically for retailers. When you make a transaction offline, when you go to a store, you don't really worry much about if the transaction is getting accepted or not. I will say 99+% of the time, as long as you have money in your account, you go home with the good that you purchased. In e-commerce, it's completely different. It's way more complex. You have hard decline, you have soft declines, you have people that put in wrong OTP. There is wrong authentication happening on different websites. So this is obviously our job, and we are very performance driven as an organization. And our job is to constantly make sure that the user experience on the websites and the e-commerce that work with us is always optimized. And we want to reach that level of part of an offline transaction to make sure that people, when they shop online, they don't really feel the difference. And you can make sure that all the local payment solution, the relevant payment method are offered. We always want to optimize the acceptance rate and the ability to make faster transaction. And then on your point, everything which is behind, fast refund as well. This is something people deeply care quite a bit. So performance is really a key metric we are at checkout. And that's why we're always obsessed about doing the best performance for our merchants.
Right. And obviously the last 3 years have been really a hockey stick growth for the company, right? And so what are some of the current things that you're working on for the next 2 to 3 years? What will be the trajectory that you'll look at? And what are the kind of products that you'd kind of roll out?
Indeed, the region has been growing extremely well, but overall globally as a checkout, we're doing super well. I mean, we recently published our 2024 data, and you can see it's over a 40% growth. Which I think is quite impressive because we process several billion transactions from merchants from everywhere in the world. And in the region, if you look at our recent digital transformation report that we published last year, you can see in the last 4 years, we've been growing 648% and only 78% year over year, 2023, 2024. I'm not going to spoil the 2025 report, but I'll tell you also looks super solid.
Wow.
So the number is definitely moving towards the right direction. We continue to grow double digit. And I think it's a function of having existing customers. They continue to grow with checkout. They continue to push more volume. They add new business with us, which means they're very happy. We give them great service. And going back to the performance, we really excel from that point of view by doing the right things that they need, the fact that we have our own acquiring license in the UAE, the fact that we support the local payment solutions such as MADA in Saudi, that's like a peace of mind for them. And also for us, obviously, we continue to win new merchants as a testament that we have a very strong solution that the market needs. We will continue to focus on both, so making sure the existing customer will grow and keep serving new merchants that they see check out in their needs and their strategy. And we definitely continue to double down the investment in performance. From a tech point of view, the investment we do specifically in our product that we call intelligence acceptance, which AI-based product, which essentially based on data and machine learning allows us to optimize failed transactions. We are recovering almost $1 billion every month of failed transactions.
Wow.
This is like a super strong product which has been adopted quite a bit, and this has been working very well. So in less than 35 days, we recover 1 billion. Now we are in the product that we launched less than 1 year ago. So I think we're already on 10 billion as per last week. So it's an incredible good product. So we'll continue to double down on that.
So you're saving almost like an entire country's economy in that sense, right? $10 billion, like a small country, right?
That's
by
right.
itself. Amazing. And so I think one of the key threads that I always observe is you yourself are completely for the ecosystem, right? You're always building partnerships, networks. Mm-hmm. I've always seen you in trade shows trying to find new ways of kind of engaging with people. And tell us a bit about what you think about the ecosystem. How mature is it in the region and what needs to happen?
Yeah, you can't do everything alone. And we strongly believe and deeply believe in the powerful of partnership. That's very relevant for us. And we do believe that specifically in the region, those kind of activities have been helping us quite a bit from where we were, from a UK-based company expanding here in the UAE, but also in Saudi. And having the right partner are very important. I think we obviously partner very well with the likes of Visa, MasterCard from a payment schemes point of view, but also have a strong relationship with all the different regulators in GCC who are offering the local payment solution. We discussed about MADA in Saudi. Obviously you have Kenet in Kuwait, you have QPay in Qatar. So we support pretty much all of them. When it comes to retail specifically, the partnership we do with the likes of Tamara and Tabi is also very strong, because we want to make sure that we can support our merchants also with the ability to accept buy now pay later solution. So the partnership element for us is extremely important. So we have strategic financial partnership relationship, but also a lot of good commercial partnership tied up with other companies. And I think it's one of the key success. That's where we are. And for us in general, every customer, every merchant that works with us is also a strategic partnership, because we don't really work on a very transactional kind of element, but also understand, how we can help them to grow based on what they have in the pipeline, based on their strategic plan in 3-5 years. I speak a lot, even this morning, like with the CEO, one of the biggest player in the region, discussing about, but in 5 years from now, what is payments for you? Is it just really transactional, or is it really about what's next?
Right.
Apart from only accepting a card payments online. So for us, every single merchant that works with us is a partner, because it helps us to become a better company every day. We also have a strong operating principle in checkout. One of them, the first one actually, is customers first, which means we solve customers' problem, and we only do that because we work very closely with them and we treat them as partner, and we want to make sure that we build features, we go to new countries, new geographies that our customers are looking for.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that because I've been a merchant for a very long time. And that entire growth mindset then transitions into the partnership, right? One of the challenges in the region also is talent, right? And you've got a stellar team that works with you. I think, so how do you kind of build that fabric of culture in a fast-paced organization? I'm sure you have these challenges of retaining, performing staff and all that. How do you kind of manage that?
It's an interesting question. Also coming before this from a debrief of a candidate, I can I answered this question a bit differently internally as well. Look, I think it's back in the days it was a bit harder for sure to find talents. I think it also was a bit harder to sell Middle East as a region. UAE, but also obviously Saudi. We have obviously office on the ground there as well. I think now there is an element of the region is becoming more powerful and popular, I would say, outside, specifically in the Western world. So you don't need to sell the region sometimes too much. But at the same time, it's not easy to operate in this part of the world. So somebody with great deep expertise that they have in Europe might not necessarily fit very well here, because the mindset is very different. The way how we operate is very different. And on top of that, goes back to your point, which I think is very important, that we work in a very fast pace.
Yes.
If you look at the growth that we have, it's a super crazy growth, and which means that we work with some of the largest players in the region, which obviously have high expectations, and the same expectation we have our own employees. So for us, it's really about building a high performance culture with the best talents that we can find, regardless where they are. We have some incredible good people that, they've been in the region for a long time, but equally, there is a lot of people that came from overseas to join Checkout. I think it's really about making sure people understand that high performance culture means that the expectations are very high. And if you work with the largest retailers in the region, you obviously want to make sure you work with one of the best payment providers out there. And obviously, the company is only as good as the people, like our CEO and founder keeps reminding us. And the company is made by these incredible good people. If people are happy, if you take care of them, I think the retention goes there without saying. It's a rocket ship Checkout in terms of growth. So good employees, they actually stay in Checkout quite a bit. We have very good retention. There is from that point of view, we're very proud about the team that we built so far. But at the same time, we continuously, constantly looking to hire. I mean, we have 7 open positions right now just in the UAE and 2 in Saudi. So we keep growing the team across multiple areas.
Amazing. So you're all set for the next phase of growth, right? So, and that's my next question. So, what does the next 5 years look like? You just touched upon it on your previous answer, but really, what's payments going to be like in 2030?
That's a very good question. I think we should send ourselves a Google invite for 2030 and do
another podcast. I'll make a note
and go back on that. I think it's very hard to predict the future in our business, because if you look at what was like 5 years ago, right now we just heard that there was like something like COVID potentially going to come, and without understanding deeply in details what was the impact. But what we know for sure, that the industry constantly changes, and we as an organization, what we do our best to keep the agility to make sure that we can move very, very quickly. I'll give you a couple of examples. We 5 years ago there was nobody mentioning buy now pay later in this part of the world, and now it's one of the most common payment method used by some of the largest retailers here. And it's also interesting for you to see that the adoption of things, specifically in MENA, in the region, they actually happens very quickly. But the fact that we're very agile as a company, and we are able to adapt to onboard new payment solution and listen to our customers very frequently, and we are able to react very fast, is telling to you that it's not necessarily what's going to happen in 2030, but is how it's going to happen, and making sure that you're ahead of the curve. Like with the same example I was telling you about intelligent acceptance, that we build this AI-based product, which is actually saving a lot of failed transactions. It's the same about when we enabled MADA in Saudi. We were the first payment company back in 2018 to enable MADA as a local payment method, which was crazy. You had to get a UK-based company to allow local e-commerce to do that. And then equally, you have all these things that continue to happen. We recently launched some new products with both Visa and MasterCard about the ability to send money quickly with the respective products that the schemes have, but also pay to card, like the ability to withdraw money from on the customer's card much quicker, which is very relevant, for example, for retailers to make quicker and faster refunds.
Right.
So we always look at new innovative solution to solve customers' needs. And I think being agile and being flexible is what is really important for us to make sure that in 2030, wherever there are the changes, whatever that will be, we can continue to adopt and being flexible and solve for those kind of solutions.
Right. And how do you see this entire buy now, pay later now moving? Because assuming that most of the banks would also start getting into the space, and you have only 2 or 3 players currently who are doing buy now, pay later. But how do you see that becoming more competitive, and do you see that changing over a period of time?
We had a lot of players in buy now, pay later, and then we start to see consolidation a bit, and then we start to see just a few surviving. And we obviously in the region we have like 2 strong players out there now. But also we see, I keep hearing quite a bit of new buy now pay later, they solve a specific problem. Like buy now pay later only for education, to pay the school fee. Buy now pay later to pay your renovation of your house. Buy now pay later for real estate, to pay your rent.
Right.
So I think the verticalization and the fact that they're going very specific, it's something that it's becoming quite interesting, and I'm quite keen to see how these players will able to adapt. Banks entering the space. I mean, if buy now pay later exists, it's because the banks haven't done a good job historically.
Right.
If we need to be very transparent here.
Yeah.
So are they probably doing a catch-up game there? I don't know. But I think the reason why BNPL became very relevant is also because the access to credit in this part of the world has been super easy.
Right.
Specifically in the UAE, but perhaps more in Saudi. It's also a matter of us to see, which I think is probably more interesting to see how it is, going back to your previous question about 2030, would retailers build their own buy now pay later?
Possibly, yeah.
We've been seeing a few players trying to do that. And I'm quite keen to see what the big players that carry a strong balance sheet and have big tech companies, if they will rely on their own way of giving access to credits to their own customers versus using a third-party player available out there.
Interesting you say that, because in India, the Find also has its own buy now pay later,
nice.
which we offer as a white label solution. So you're right. It could probably move into that direction as well.
Something for you to explore here then.
Yeah, we'll figure out what needs to happen there. So, but I think coming back to our conversation on the AI is now the buzzword, right? And you gave one great example of how it's saving almost $10 billion, right? What else is going to happen in the AI space when it comes to payments, especially from a safety security perspective? Do you see measures going up, it becoming easier for you to implement more safe, secure measures? Or
we use AI a lot to check out now, and the intelligence acceptance product I was mentioning is probably the best, most impactful example, because it's doing super well, and you can definitely see the impact on real numbers there. And when you save failed transaction, really it makes a big difference for big companies. That they have a lot of volume, and like a few basis points of cost saving or of acceptance rate numbers is actually a real line on the P&L. But also we use a lot AI in when it comes to fraud prevention, because that's an area where obviously it's also becoming very, very concerning. It's always been obviously one of the challenge for e-commerce. And also when you interview people, and also in our report, you can see that one of the biggest concern of people to shop online is like safe and security. They don't trust the brand. They don't want to put the card on the website they don't know. There is still a bit of that, although less and less in the region. But also what we can see is that, the fact that fraudsters becoming smarter, you need to always be on top of the best technology and the most innovative solution to that. So having a lot of data there on fraud, and now you can make sure that you can look at fraud pattern by using AI and understanding and anticipating the different routes that these people are doing. It's actually very relevant for us, and that's where we continue to invest in our fraud. We build everything in house, by the way. So we have our own fraud detection tool. That with more data, with more transaction, that obviously help us to continue to push and having finding the right balance. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you don't accept unauthorized transactions, but also you don't want to have a lot of false positive, which means you want to make sure that the genuine customer is not getting blocked by your fraud tool.
Right.
Because then you create a lot of frustration on your customer. It goes back to user experience we discussed earlier. And overall, we are very performance driven as a company. And fraud is an area where AI, I think, can still help quite a bit.
Yeah, amazing. And if you were to take, give you a crystal ball to gaze, what would be your one bold prediction for the next 5 years?
Yeah. I think we are not really in the business of predicting the future here. And that's not an easy question, but I think the payment industry will continue to be very fragmented, yet very regulated. And I will see that there is going to be more and more maturity in the region from that point of view. And I definitely is going to be disruption in some areas, like we see, for example, in AI and like a lot of in the different work and jobs that people do. But I also think that, the fundamental of the business model, they will still remain very, very strong from that perspective. And it's going to be still more digital. Still, there's going to be a lot of more opportunity to innovate, specifically when it comes to new line of business. Maybe I'll explain a bit better here. If I look at the growth that we had in the last couple of years, it's actually quite interesting to see that the overall Fintech and money movement business grew quite a bit.
Yes.
Like 5 years ago, there was almost no transaction happening online, for example, for remittances business. And, in the region, UAE and Saudi, top 3 countries in the world with the US in terms of remittance flow. Pretty much everything was offline.
Yes.
Now you can send money back home with your debit card in many local application or global players that actually entering in the region. And that's something that you didn't have 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a completely new line of business now with the transaction from offline to online. I hope we can see the same in other cash heavy industry. I'm still hearing there is a lot of checkbooks being issued by banks to pay rents.
Yes.
In 2025, I don't think they are needed anymore.
Yeah.
Insurance, I think still a lot of cash going around that. So there is still a lot of innovation can be done on this kind of business. But the last thing I will say, I think the payment B2B needs to be disrupted still. And this is probably a good idea for somebody who is smart and young enough to see if I want to build a fintech, to solve a specific problem, because there is not much solution for a company who wants to accept B2B payments, apart from relying on the traditional bank transfer, or even worse, like I was just mentioning, checks. That's something I'm quite keen to see in the next 5 years. Not having a crystal ball, but in 5 years from now, I want to see the B2B payments become much more digital.
Yeah. And specifically for the region, do you see cross-border kind of payments changing in a certain way over the next few years? Or?
You're touching a good point, because if you look again the results of our data, it's very obvious that year over year, we have strong increase of e-commerce. It continues to grow exceptionally well. Digital payments continue to grow very, very well. Again, another witness, another confirmation that we are in the right region at the right time. But the third element we see is the cross-border opportunities are very high in the UAE, in Qatar, in Saudi. Obviously, consumers mention as one of the top option for shop online in a website not based in the region is because they didn't find the item they were looking for. So the availability seems still to be an issue there. There's a lot of local players that have like millions of SKUs where you can buy products, but I think the depth of the different categories that some of these players outside the region they're bringing here is actually very, very relevant for the consumers, because that's why they're shopping there. And to answer your question, unless the local players, they actually continue to do a good job, they do a better job there, I still see the cross-border opportunities, they become much bigger. There is obviously a lot of debates about, also from a regulatory point of view, how these companies, they can start to, they can ship products from overseas. There is also the interesting debate about the overall user experience. We discussed a lot about, people want things fast and quickly. And there's a lot of good companies here that deliver things like in 1 hour. You can get your grocery delivery like in 15 minutes. But then it seems like customers don't mind to wait for 10 days for the right fashion item at the right price.
Right.
So that's actually an interesting shift we have been seeing. And while the speed of delivery was always mentioned as one of the top reason for shop online, is not always the case. So it goes back a bit of a unicity of the product as well, and obviously the right price point for the right consumer. And that's why I will continue. I still see that the cross-border opportunity will still come in this part of the world, which I think is also great because keep attracting more like players overseas. Although what I'm expecting is that some of these players, specifically the one based in Asia or China specifically, to have more local presence here. Right. To be like have the all local warehouse, local fulfillment centers, local people on the ground, because understanding the local market, of course, is very, very relevant. But yet the country argument to that is, if I'm a local retailer, I understand the market better than anyone else. And now I can make sure I can become more defendable with my strategy, that I make sure that the local consumer shops locally is still something that the local players, they can still do here quite well. Also, if you look at the payments space specifically, the local players, they have an advantage because they are able to offer local payment methods, they're able to offer local currencies, and they're able to obviously also to have more competitive pricing when it comes to payment. Versus like across border. So there is a lot of advantage. The local players, they can still have, and we are in a very good position, checkout, because we're very happy that we are able to support some of the largest cross-border players. So we see a lot of data of people shipping and selling items in this part of the world, but also we work with some of the largest retailers here. So we can see how the cross-border activity is growing and very, very fast.
So Remo, what are some of the advantages that checkout.com has as compared to local banks, or why should somebody work with checkout.com?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, as a global payment company, we've been helping a lot of players to expand their business in a single platform. And you have one platform, one integration, one API, one dashboard, where you have like 150 payment currencies, different payment methods in one go. So I think we've been a peace of mind for a lot of players that have been working with Checkout. Specifically in the region, we've been able to connect with all the local payment solution. We mentioned again, Mada in Saudi, we have Omanet in Oman, Kenet in Kuwait, Benefit in Bahrain. We are able to support in the same platform Apple Pay, Google Pay, the buy now pay later solutions such as Tamar and Tabi, new wallets such as STC Pay. And there's actually a very strong added value for like retailers, because they need to manage only one single platform. And all these things change quite a bit. And you don't want, payment is not necessarily the core business for all of our retailers and merchants that we work with in general in the e-commerce space, but obviously it's the core what we do. And keep innovating is very important. And you want to make sure also you work with a provider that keeps launching new features. And I think that's where we've been very successful, because we provide like strong coverage. Just to summarize, we have the ability obviously to operate as a payment gateway, as an acquirer, and as a payment processor together. And what does it mean is that merchants in the UAE specifically, they rely only on Checkout when it comes to payment processing. So one single integration, one single agreement. We receive this, to make it very simple, we receive the funds from the payment schemes, and then we settle directly ourselves to the merchant, as we have our own acquiring license. We're regulated by the central bank in the UAE. We actually were the first international payment company to get the central bank license, which also shows the fact that being here in the country for a long time and understanding very well this part of the world also gives us a bit of an edge from that perspective. And we also know that, again, going back to the topic of acceptance, when you unify everything in one platform, the performance are much better. And right. That's why people keep choosing checkout.com. We also are very modular as a company. We have the ability to provide the specific part of the business to specific merchants. So for example, if a merchant in Kuwait wants to work with their own bank, where they want to use our payment gateway, they can absolutely do that. I think it's the modularity also is something that we're seeing quite a bit, specifically in Europe and the US, of people asking, and because we always look at what can be next for the region, we always want to keep that flexibility that merchants, they can keep that in mind. Although specifically in the UAE, we do see that merchants go with Checkout, they get our full solution in one go, which obviously ends up to be cheaper. You get like better support, better acceptance rate in general, and this has been very, 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 very strong. Last but not least, and you mentioned a few times you've been a merchant. I think we're quite proud of ourselves for the good level of service that we provide to the merchants.
Yes,
we're very enterprise focused, so we work with some of the biggest players in the region, and we don't compromise on the level of service that we give to the players we work with, and that's why for us, still is very important, and we always double down the level of support, regardless how much AI you put there. We always need like a great people managing the relationship and what is next, and understanding the merchants need.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Remo. I think the last few questions are mostly leadership nuggets. So a rapid fire round where you can say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
So a book that's kind of made a difference in your life.
Listen, I got I read a lot of books. Not a lot. I should read more. But I can tell you, being obviously a father of two right now, I can probably don't give you one of these boring business books, but I can tell you there is a book that became very interesting for me, is how to speak so your kids can listen, and how you listen so your kids can speak.
Wow. Okay.
And so it's not really the usual business book, but it became very important for me to see how I could get prepared to be a dad, which I don't think you can ever do that, but at least to how you can be a better version of yourself day by day. But it's also interesting because I find a lot of great examples and elements in that book, which actually apply on my daily job as well.
Wow, amazing. So it's really transformative, right, in that sense?
It's been helping quite a bit, I must say. The way I communicate as well, not only with my kids, but in general with my colleagues.
Amazing. One business leader you look up to?
It's very obviously if I tell my boss.
Outside of your boss.
Guillaume has built from scratch this amazing company, has been the founder and CEO of a company, which is like a crazy journey. And knowing Guillaume before, when I was a merchant, and before even the first fundraising that was done, we did. I'm still the same person, so I think I admired quite a bit. He still has the same level of energy that he had when he started the company, if actually probably not more right now. And he definitely built one of the most strong and successful fintech in the world.
Right. Any catastrophic failure that comes to mind when it comes to payments? Anything that comes to your mind?
Well, catastrophic. Yeah, I can. It's a very strong word. I think there is a couple of stories I can say here. When I was a merchant, and that's by the way how I started to learn about checkout, because when I was a merchant, I was dealing with other payment solution, and then I started to understand a bit more the power of checkout and the fact you have a single platform, one processor. And at some point, I realized that some of the providers I was working with, they were relying on third-party payment processors, which they were down for 4 hours, for 6 hours, and your shop is closed there, so you can have the best product at the right price. And if your payment gateway is not working, that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So that's why we goes without saying they need to have the basics right. We didn't mention this before, but the uptime for us, needs to be like 5 nines.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable. So it's really something very relevant. For us from that point of view, to make sure obviously we have good stability. And I think a lot of catastrophic situation where you had like some big players that were relying on a payment gateway, which is like with the average technology, they went completely down.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit of an issue, because there's a lot of not only the reputational damage, there's a lot of issue when it comes up to not only the revenue, but the trust that it's very hard to build trust, but it's very easy to lose it as well. And specifically for e-commerce and retailers out there, they spend so much money in marketing. They look about optimizing the CPC, the CPM of the marketing campaigns. Then you bring the customer to the website, they go to the payment page, they cannot pay. That's a bit of an issue. So I think obviously relying on a payment partner, which doesn't make any of these big catastrophic issue, as you mentioned, it's actually very relevant.
Yeah, no, I think, and I kind of link this back to my days being a merchant. And this was 2020 when my business was shutting down. And we had 2 payment gateways. So there was, of course, checkout and another one. The other payment gateway, and we had to refund our customers, right?
I remember those time.
And the ease with which we were able to do one-click checkouts and refunds to customers from checkout.com actually changed my entire opinion about how payments should be handled. And probably out of that catastrophe, I learned that, what a great payment solution can really do. So I thank you for all the support throughout, Remo.
I'm glad to hear. And actually just made you remember about this time that we had of how to make faster refunds.
Refunds, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stories like this, where a lot of merchants, there were also merchants that actually they authorize the payment, but they never capture it.
Yes.
And obviously, you end up by delivering the service. I remember like a travel company there said, but they already sold all the flight tickets. I didn't capture the payments.
Wow.
And how to help them. So there is that's why the education also is very important.
Right. Amazing. Remo, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time out through a busy schedule. And I look forward to catching up with you again and seeing you in the market somewhere.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me, and good luck for the next podcast sessions.
Thank you very much. And Remo, before we go, where can our listeners follow you and where can they follow checkout.com?
Yeah, checkout.com, I will say always LinkedIn is a good place for both me and checkout. I must say I can probably be more active than I am right now on LinkedIn, but that's, I think, the best place. And obviously happy to connect with anyone on a one-on-one basis who wants to know more about payments or any topic that we discussed today.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Remo, once again. And for all your payment solutions, please follow checkout.com. For all your retail and e-commerce solutions, check us out on find.com, which is www.fynd.com. It's find with a Y. And if you want to know why there's a Y in the find, you will need to reach out to us. Until next time, please stay connected, stay happy and cheerful, and we'll see you soon.